Catharina van Bora.
Ja.
Nicht versteht.
Sie?
Nein, spreche Deutsch.
No.
English.
Yeah.
And my name is Catharina van Bora. You might know me better as Katie Luther. I am here to tell you of myself as a bold woman of faith. I was born in Meissen, Saxony, January 29, 1499. This is the land of poets and composers and the age of Reformation. I was of noble birth. Yeah, even descended from German knights on nobility, but of a poor existence. We lived on a farm. All my life, I had a love of the soil. I always believed that the best security was the acquisition of land. Then I was 6 years old. My mother died. My father, he remarried just a few months later to a woman with no dowry on a family of her own. So, I was taken to a convent to be educated by the Benedictine nuns. I spent 18 years in cloistered halls, many of them as a novice. It was October the 8th, 1515, and I took my vows of charity, chastity, obedience. I was 16 years old. Oh, life was hard. I mean, we had no freedom. There was work. On 7 services a day we must attend. Aunt Magdalene, she was a relative on my mother's side. She was my only confidant. She worked in the infirmary in the cloister. So, October the 8th, 1517. You know the date. And that was when Martin Luther posted his 95 Theses on the door of the castle church. Made the church a little shaky. The nuns learned about it through letters and documents smuggled into the convent. And we started to question. And we were punished for reading heresy. Yeah, it was the 16th century and the age of diverse upheaval, yeah? Yeah, we struggled with no access to the scriptures. And we wanted our freedom. So it was arranged. On the night of the Easter vigil, let him come. The merchant from Tagalo, he met us with a wagon filled with herring barrels. Woo! So the 12 of us escaped. And we were within the pickled herring. We were stopped once, but then we were dismissed for the smell. So we reached Tagalo. We knew we were safe. And then we bathed, and changed clothes, and we ate. And 9 of us then, 9 went to Wittenberg, and Dr. Luther met us up. And he said, oh, I have this. It's a little tattered, and it's old. But I think I translate, yeah? Yeah. So, Luther he wrote this. It is great misery, I am sorry to say, that they permit children to enter the cloister. There is no daily practice of the word of God. They seldom hear the gospel, rightly preached, and this is reason enough to have these persons pulled out of the cloister by any means or snatched away, any means possible, regardless of how many thousands of oaths or vows that they made. For God's not pleased with any worship unless it was made with full prayers, and otherwise we would have too much dangerous temptation and sin. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And Luther, he was once quoted as saying that I was no beauty. But I was a disciplined person. I had a kind face and a frank expression. Well, I was homeless and I was penniless, and I had a patience being a nun and the discipline to pray with God every day. But I had to know what to do with my newfound freedom. I was placed in the home of Ilse and Philip Reisenbeck. Ilse taught me how to organize and maintain a large home. They had many wealthy friends who would come and stay with them, and among them was a very nice young man, Jerome Baumgartner. After some time, we fell in love. And we even talked of marriage. And, well, Dr. Luther was pleased with this. He was happy, yeah. But Jerome's parents, they found out about our plans, and they sent for Jerome to come home. He said he would return. What he did not come back. They did not want their son to marry a woman who was a former nun and had no dowry. Huh? Well, later then, I went to the home of Philip and Barbara Grenache. Oh, he was a very famous artist of his time, and a businessman. It was there that Luther asked me to marry Casper Lodge. Well, I refused. I know, yes, he was a pastor. He had a doctorate in theology. I said, Casper, that's cold. I'm stingy. And old. My heart was cold to him. I told Answorth that was Lucy's very best friend. I said I could marry him, maybe, or Luther himself. When Luther heard that, he said, "Did she say that?" He told his friends, "I was proud and haughty." Yeah. But then, his father, Hans, he wanted Luther to marry. Well, he encouraged him to do so. He wanted to marry her. Some days later then, Luther, he asked me to marry him. It was June the 13th in 1515. He said he'd put it off for so long because he was afraid he might be put to death. And then I would be left a widow. Anyway, we were married in the Catholic Church. You know, you did not marry for love so much in those days. It would come later, yeah? So, we moved into the Black Cloister. It was only a third completed and much neglected. Luther had lived there for 14 years. One time there were 40 monks that lived in one wing. We lived on the second floor. Luther's study was there. We had our family worship. There was meetings, and well, the first floor now. That was where the kitchen was, and the housekeeping rooms. And like I said, it was much neglected. It needed a woman's touch. You know, it had been a long time before there had been any monks living there. But occasionally there was a renegade monk or an exiled preacher, and they would come and they would ask for refuge. And well, of course, Luther would always give it to them. You know, he did not have time to court me much. He had a hectic schedule. the constant death threats. So, I was gardener, I was cattle and horse breeder, I was fruit grower, I was fisherman, I was cook, I was sewing, I was beekeeper, I was a beer brewer, yeah. And the cooking, the cleaning. Oh, we had guests from all over the world. You know, I would often visit Lutheran study. Well, to make clean the rooms, and then he would be so busy, he would forget to eat. He had a very meager salary. But we got gifts. Oh, there was lumber, there was bricks, there was lime for beauty products. And, oh, there were silver goblets, gold chains and rings. But we were all in debt. Well, Luther felt that he must give to the students and to the refugees and to the homeless and, well, I was determined that we would be self-sufficient with our produce and with the animals. You know, I had a favorite glass goblet from Venetia, and I hid it. I was afraid Luther would give it away. I never got when I hid it. I found it later anyway, just to help one of the boys in furthering their education. But all this time, Luther had never said that he loved me. I began to think I was not important to him or to his work. But one day, I was in his study, making clean the room, and he looked at me with those big eyes of his, and he said, "Wife, I love you." Oh, that was the happiest day. Luther would often call me his precious Lord Kate. I was lonely, though, and Aunt Magdalene came to live with us. That was good. She taught me so much about nursing skills as she worked in the infirmary in the cloister, right? And she hadn't been there. We were in the kitchen once, and she says, "Katie," she said, "you have been nauseous for several days. You must go to the doctor." And I did. And he found out I was pregnant. Oh, Luther was so happy when our son Hans was born. He called forth the doctors back and the neighbors and the friends and some theologians or politicians. And he says, "All I want is for this little heathen to be baptized, that's all." Luther always said that the sweetest fruits of marriage were the children. They tied together the bonds of love. When Hans was 18 months old, we had Elizabeth. There was a plague on the land then. And Elizabeth died when she was 8 months old. We were heartbroken, but we knew that she went through death to Christ. A year later, we had Magdalena. Lena, oh God, she was such a sweet child. She died when she was 13. Luther never got over Lena's death. She was a perfect girl. Well, later we had Martin and Paul, and when I was 34, Margareta was born. And Luther, he was often prone to fits of melancholy. I days and then weeks sometimes on end. It had been going on for about 3 weeks at one time. And so I got up and I dressed all in black. And I came out. And he says, Katrina van der, why are you dressed in mourning? I says, it's terrible. It's terrible. What? What is terrible? What's wrong? God is dead. Katie Luther, what are you saying? God is dead. He must be dead. For you, with your great faith. If he were alive, you would have had him pulling you out of this lethargy you have been in for the last 3 weeks. He just looked at me, and then he smiled. And he says, oh, Katie Luther. He says, I'm so sorry. You're right. Oh, we had dinner parties, yeah? Almost all the time, we would have people there. They were the neighbors sometimes, and some friends, the theologians, even politicians. And Luther was the focal point of each supper. And he would look around, and they all had something to say. But the first question was, what did you learn today? So Luther, yeah. And I was hostess, and I was privy to all conversations. We spoke in Latin when it was academics, and in German when it was everyday things. You know something? Luther, he once said that he would not trade me for all of France and Venice combined for 3 reasons. One, because God has given her to me and me to her. 2, because I have seen many other women's and they all have more faults than my Katie. And 3, because she is like Galatians. Galatians is my favorite epistle. And it is my Katrina van Bora. I trust them both. He told me once, he says, I will give you 50 guilder if you could read the entire Bible in 1 year. And I did. And then he said that I understood the Psalms better than he did. He says it takes a true theologian to understand the Psalter. Luther was ill, and he was tired. He still made so many trips and helped so many people. I think that now I find it difficult to go on. I'm going to ask Pat to give you the continuous of this. Katie has asked me if I would read this for her and say, what happened then? It was January the 23rd, it was 1546. And Luther, like Katie has told you, has been very ill. And he was so tired, but he couldn't refuse anybody. And he went on this very demanding journey to Istanbul. And it was to mediate some mining rights for German counts. She was so concerned for him, and she sent all the sons to go with him in case anything would happen, and her concerns proved to be so. And he died of a heart attack on February the 18th. And it said that his last words were from Psalm 31, verse 5. Into thy hand I commit my spirit. Thou hast redeemed me, O Lord, faithful God. he was laid to rest in the Castle Church in Wittenberg, and thousands of people thronged the streets and followed her to the church. And Katie and the children, after his death, they struggled so much with poverty and the oppression of Emperor Charles V, and continued outbreaks of plague, peasant uprising. During one outbreak of the plague, Katie and the children decided that they should return to her family home, and this was in Zusdorf. And on the way, the carriage lurched, and Katie was thrown out, and she lay feverish for days and days before she died. Her obituary said, Katrina van Bora was able to cling to Christ like a bird to the hem of a dress. Why, you might want to know what happened to the children. Well, Hans was a counselor in Torgau. Martin was a private scholar of theology, and he wanted to be a pastor, but his health really forbade that. Paul was a doctor and a professor, and Margaret married and had 3 children. Thank you. Okay.